And we are live right now with Rayland Baxter in the studio. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having us.
Congratulations on Imaginary Man.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
You know, when I was getting ready for the interview, there was one that you described the album as a sonic birdbath. And I thought that described you about it as well as it described the album. You know, it's you're an interesting guy.
Algae, water, bacteria, feces, leaves, feathers, annoying chirping, pecking.
These are all things that you can look forward to tonight when Rayland Baxter opens for Grace Potter over at the Uptown.
Exactly.
So, Imaginary Man, I've heard you describe the rationale behind the title a few times. Would you like to give it another shot here?
I think now that I've had time to sit on this album title, there's very little, I don't know if I've ever done a good job at describing the rationale, because really it was the second album title in a list of a bunch of album titles that I had been collecting over, 6 months or whenever we started recording, and then on through the process to when we were done mastering. But I thought that it was a nice title because some of the songs, they all are a chunk of me. They're all about some chunk of me. But at the same time, maybe I don't want to actually claim that it's so true. So then if by naming it Imaginary Man, I can kind of shoot it off as a side character of my subconscious.
Yeah. You got that one right.
Yeah.
Ding.
Yeah.
So, reading all the different descriptions, it kind of made me wonder if you had an imaginary friend when you were a child.
I have them now. I've had them. There's millions of them.
Well, and that was like the next step, right? Because it's sort of like most people grew out of their imaginary friends. You put yours to work.
Totally. The whole living in a dream state, which my career allows me to do quite often. Driving in the van, dozing off to sleep, dreaming, staring out the window, dreaming. But always, I always like to look at life through, I think lots of people do this. They look at life through a movie screen. You watch movies and you want to recreate those scenes. So maybe let's take Dazed and Confused, for example, one of my favorite movies of kind of child, high school stoner Bible. When I go to a party, I kind of want to relive the Moon Tower party. Or if I'm driving through the plains of North Dakota or South Dakota, I would like to go off into Lieutenant John J. Dunbar land of Dances with Wolves and pretend like I'm running with the Native American Sioux, or, just stuff like this. So I think that the imagination is a beautiful gift that we're all given.
So to summarize, God knows where you are right now.
Yeah, I'm on a... Exactly. See these eyes? They're shut.
This next little piece may mean more as we go through the interview, but I read that one of your favorite quotes from Dylan is, "An artist is always in the state of becoming." Mm-hmm. And, we have so many people in here who sort of know early on that this is what they want to do. But you kind of had to go out and get a life before you realized that you were going to become an artist.
Yeah, I didn't start playing music till I was, 20 years old, 21 years old. And before that, I was, running through the woods. I was playing sports. I was not playing guitar. I was doing everything but. And I traveled a bunch, not around the world really, but around the country. I was always going on major road trips with my dad, and snowboarding and fly fishing and four-wheeling in Canada. And he was on tour all the time, but when he was off, we would go on these crazy trips. And before I was 20 years old, I had been to jail for 4 days in Baltimore, for some stuff that's not worth repeating. Really, honestly, it's not. But that was a crazy experience, and those little snapshots and those little when you screw up, that affects how I write songs. Or when I saw something beautiful on the top of the Grand Tetons, that affects how I write songs and all that stuff. You know, it's just little scribbles in the page that when you go back and you try to pull from your memory and mix that in with imagination, then you're off to the race.
We'd love to hear some of those right now, if we could.
Location, Detroit, Michigan. This song's called Mr. Rodriguez. Yesterday morning, I was walking around, me and Mr. Rodriguez on the wrong side of town. The streets were all empty and the houses all burned down. He reached in his pocket and he pulled out a crown and he said, so much like me, boy, step out of your dream. Watch them all gather round, boy, it is your turn to be king. You are the only one. You are the only one. I come from a small town near West Beverly, right under the freeway, all my brothers and me. My father was Henry, Mary Jane, Eloise. They work in a coal mine from age 17. I don't see them that much no more. They died one day. A king from a jester and a queen from a slave. You are the only one. You are the only one. You are the only one for me. Well, there's a rose in my garden that never grows, and it keeps me up at night forevermore. And what I hold in my hand, I was told to never hold, so I let it go. So the slave and the jester, they met out in the park. A slow song in the distance and a dance to the dark. One hand to the outside, she waves across the wind. They circle for hours, or what seemed to be back then. She loved him in the moonlight, soon the morning comes. Back to the coal mine when the day is done. Say, you are the only one. You are the only one. You are the only one for me.
Mr. Rodriguez live in the studio with Rayland Baxter and his band. They're going to be opening tonight for Grace Potter at the Uptown. That's one of the Imaginary Man songs. Yeah. You didn't walk with Rodriguez, but your imaginary man did.
Totally. Yeah, I was really intrigued by his character, and I kind of came along that documentary about him.
Searching for Sugar Man.
The same time I'd gone to Detroit for the first time a few years ago. And I was there for 4 days in between tours, and I really appreciated the town. I appreciated the decay of the town and the kind of the rebirth of all that's happening in Detroit, in bits and pieces. Detroit's turning back into something really cool. I mean, it never was not. It's always been cool in my mind. And then I went there, and it was even cooler. But I saw the crash and burn, the existence of the crash and burn.
You know, you live in Nashville,
Mm-hmm.
and Nashville itself has, you don't want to. I don't want to sit too harshly in judgment, but there's been some garbage that's come out of Nashville.
Oh yeah.
But there's also now a creative pool of a lot of people that are trying to make Nashville a great place that sort of is deserving of the reputation that it's always had.
Yeah, there's all types of bands. I moved back to Nashville 7.5 years ago, and that was kind of, I think, the beginning, maybe a year or two before me moving back, but the beginning of the change. All types of people moving from all over, and just the people that grew up there. But you have bands like Bully, okay? Are you familiar with them?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're based out of Nashville. Help me out, dudes. Cage the Elephant's based out of Nashville.
I mean, everybody's there.
Yeah, it's like that's just 2 of 300 bands that I like. And I think they're escaping the bubble. Every few months you'll hear of a Nashville band who's doing really well, and then people, I don't know.
And there's always been also, along with all that bad music, there's been tremendously good music made
Right.
in Nashville consistently
Right.
since the 50s.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Don't ask her on a train to kill or not.
Yeah, like that.
I'm sold. So this album in particular, you recorded this in a home in Nashville.
I recorded it in a home studio, but it's as pumped up of a home studio as you can get. It's a 3-car garage that was converted into a proper recording studio, 3 cars can fit in there, or 13 musicians and an engineer. It's called The Casino, and my buddy Eric Massey owns it and operates it. And Eric Massey recorded it and co-produced alongside Adam Landry. All Nashville folks.
You had some really great people come in and help out with the backup vocals too.
Yeah, let's see. We'll start with Mickey Echo, who's an amazing vocalist, absolute beautiful voice, and a good friend. Jesse Balin, along the same lines, an amazing vocalist and good friend, all in the community. And then a new friend at the time. He showed up at the studio, but Matt Vasquez from Delta Spirit, who sang a bunch. He's all the prominent background vocals on the album. Most all of them are him. And he's friends with Adam Landry, who was co-producing. And Adam was like, I think Matt would sound really good on your vocal. And so Matt showed up, and that was over a year ago, and we've become good buddies since. And he just sang with us and played guitar with us at ACL in Austin. And he just had a baby named Thor. Yeah, he's out there doing his thing. Isaac Bird, who sang on Feathers and Fishhooks, my first album, came back, and she sang on track 8 or 9. Just a buddy system.
Yeah. So, I just think it's really interesting too that you've had, some kind of beard for the better part of the last several years, and your dad was getting married, and right before the album cover shoot, he asked you to shave for the wedding photos. Did you find that at all ironic, given
I did. When I shaved the beard, I didn't even think about the album shoot, the photo shoot for the album. I just did it because he made a point. He's like, these pictures, you might not always have the beard, Ray. And obviously I don't. It's a part of my life that's since come and gone. Very exciting. But I shaved it, and then the Monday following the Saturday wedding, I was doing photos for the album, and it just worked out. There was a bunch of photos. We picked that one because it was the most interesting, I think. But it also works for the Imaginary Man title. Nobody has seen me with this freshly shaved face in 9 years.
That's the imaginary man.
Yeah.
The imaginary man is just actually me without any facial hair.
Finally, we have the definition.
Try and
for the
find
words.
him. You will never.
You know, I think the thing that struck me about it is, you know, a lot of us have had dads that have said, you know, why don't you shave? Why don't you clean up a little bit, you know? But, you know, most of us don't have dads that have, you know, toured with Steve Earle, Bob Dylan, and Ryan Adams. And for him to ask you to clean up, it was just sort of like, really?
I still gave him some heat about it. I was like, really? You're going to make me, you want me to shave this for the wedding? Okay. So I kind of did it. I'm blanking right now, like in spite. Yeah. Is that proper English there?
Under protest.
Under protest, yeah.
Yeah, good one, Musty.
Yeah, thanks. This is Matt Musty from Piedmont, New Hampshire.
Hello, everybody.
You want to introduce all of the band?
Yeah, over here from Los Angeles, Finland is Jan Cohan. He's on the guitar. On the drums is Matthew Mustard Sauce Mustang. Here on the drums from Provo, Utah, we have Tyler I Love You Jesus Osmond. And to the right, we have from Hope, Arkansas, Mr. Jimmy, I Am the King of Nebadon, Eat the Purple Pill, Wizardly Man, bearded, facial gestures. Mr. Jimmy Matt Rowland.
And staunch supporter of all eras of Nashville music.
Yeah,
Yes.
all ears.
There you
Yeah,
go.
he's a musical dictionary. Although his favorite song is anything that John Anderson sings about tequila. You want to sing us a little bit? Come on, man.
That's what they really want?
Yeah.
Don't ask her on a straight tequila night. She'll start thinking about him, and she's ready to fight. Blames her broken heart on every man inside. On a straight tequila night.
So smooth.
That was like a huge bonus. That was tremendous.
Just trying to get John some money.
There you
Turkey hunt.
There you go. Can we talk you into another song?
Yeah. We're playing 3 songs?
Yeah.
Okay, so
that's
this
okay.
song's called Freaking Me Out. So I used to be a good man. I used to have friends. They would find me in the evening and mess with my head. But when I wake up in the morning and no one's around, just me in the darkness flying around, I'm losing my mind. Freaking me out. It's freaking me out. So I turned into a bad man and I ran out the door. I made a friend with the rooster and a friend with the poet. And they made me believe that I was holding the crown. But it was me in the darkness flying around. I'm losing my mind. It's freaking me out. I'm losing my mind. And now you know it's a freaking me out. Oh yeah, it's freaking me out.
Mr. Jimmy. So I turned into a bad man and I ran out the door. I made a friend with the rooster and a friend with the poet. And they made me believe that I was holding the crown. But it was me in the darkness flying around. And I used to have a good heart and I used to be kind. I'd be there for my brothers, it was a mission of mine. But as soon as I see there's no one around, it's just me in the darkness, flying around. I'm losing my mind. It's freaking me out. Baby, don't you know what's been happening to me? It's freaking me out. Oh yeah, it's freaking me out. Oh, it's freaking me
Rayland Baxter and his band in our studios today, of course, opening tonight for Grace Potter at the Uptown, the new CD, Imaginary Man, and that was Freaking Me Out, one of the songs from Imaginary Man. You know, you kind of alluded to it earlier, but you came to music, a little bit later on, played lacrosse at Loyola, blew out both knees, and the whole songwriting thing came a little bit later on. But the thing that I guess your dad gave you a guitar about the time that you blew out your knees.
Yeah. He gave me a guitar in December as a Christmas gift. And if I blew out my left knee September of 2003, it was December, the following December, I blew out the first one in high school. No guitar there. I just started noodling away, played in college, started a little cover band, and we covered all types of, fun beer drinking party music, and then it was kind of off to the races.
There was an early episode that kind of planted a seed where your dad caught you whistling.
Yeah, you did some research.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought that was so amazing.
I was listening to the Polyphonic Spree. Remember that band?
Sure.
Polyphonic Spree in headphones. I was in Whites Creek, Tennessee, at his where he used to live, and I was in the woods collecting sticks for a bonfire he was having, and I was just whistling, and he heard that I had a good ear, that I could carry a note. And this is my junior year in college, pre-guitar, pre-knee surgery, and he's just said something like, "Oh, Ray, you got a good ear. You should write songs." He said two things to me up to that point. When I was really young, I was beating along on a kitchen countertop, and he said I had good tempo. And then later on, many years later, he said, "You have a good ear, you should write songs." Just like that. And that was the first time I actually thought about doing anything like that. And then it took a couple years to come around to it. But sure enough, he made he planted little seeds, like he knew exactly what he was doing or something. But no, he didn't. He don't see the future. Maybe
You
he
know,
does.
your parents divorced when you were 2 and spent most of the time with your mom because your dad was on tour all the time. But road trips, music were a huge part of that.
Yeah, big time. That's where I got schooled. It's really funny. I have another funny story that can shoot this one off. He came to visit me and my sister when I was at my mom's house in Tennessee when I was young. Before I was in 6th grade, maybe late 5th grade, and he heard me say that I liked a Hootie and the Blowfish song. And after that, he started playing me Jimi Hendrix and Chet Atkins and like Creedence Clearwater and Dylan and the band and a bunch of classic music. So thanks, Pops. Nothing against you, Hootie, but not my vibe.
Your dad was clearly the professional musician, and he's even guested on a couple of your CDs. But, you know, your mom had an influence, too, because she was singing around the house and singing at church and playing piano. And
yeah, she's a great musician, and she was a great singer, and she doesn't have, like, the musical chops of Bucky, obviously, but she still can sing great. She sings now. She sings in 5 different languages in a community choir. She is a vocalist. She's not a practicing vocalist until late, but she is a very phenomenal singer.
you know, the part of your story that just seems like it's really unusual is that all those seeds that were planted really started to take hold and grow when you were in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's sort of like, it didn't really seem like, you know, if you hear Israel, it's like, oh, pilgrimage, you know, but
Right.
it wasn't really like that, I don't think.
You know, I just ended up there. Everything had come together perfectly, or just naturally, not perfectly, but naturally. And I was guitar teching for a band, and then that my dad was in, and then it was in Europe. That tour ended in Europe, and Bucky was like, "Let's go say hi to Andre in Israel. We're very close. We're a 3-hour flight away." And I stayed for a month and a half or 2 months. He left after 2 weeks, and Andre is a really wise human being, one of those people that when he's very well respected in the country of Israel, but in his community, you know, people come to him for advice. He's a doctor. When he talks, people listen. I was really eager when he came home from work every day to sit around and just talk with him outside. We'd walk around his property, and you know, he'd be shifting stones around this koi pond he built, and just listening to what he had to say, also about songwriting. And I would write and show him what I had written the night before or the day of, and he would tell me why he liked it or why he didn't. And that was the beginning kind of how I was, what I thought made a quality line of poetry, you know?
So you were listening to his record collection, watching some documentaries about musicians and songwriters.
Mm-hmm.
And this is all happening in a place where, you know, you're not that far from Gaza and you hear the occasional.
I was the closest to Gaza in terms of a city that's closest to Gaza, and Ashkelon was where I was living. And you hear the bombs land, you feel them land, you watch the windows go, or they'll rattle, or the pool or the koi pond will rattle when one lands within, you know, a few miles, 5, 7, 8 miles or kilometers. One landed in the Moshav when I was living there. One landed at the school, but didn't detonate, didn't explode. But I felt it, you know. And you have the bomb sirens going off, and 18-year-old, 19-year-old, 20-year-old kids walking around with huge rifles at the bus stops, waiting to go either home or back to training camp or their fort in the desert.
So does this strike you as being an unusual place for your creativity to really blossom?
Yeah, but like there's family there, and the whole bunch of people living in Israel seemed, at the time, this was 7 years ago, seemed to be just fine with how everything was going down. Well, they at least put off that front. I don't know. but everybody was calm. Nobody cared. And the bombs never really landed anywhere too crazy, and very few people were harmed in the process. You know, they have the Iron Curtain there, they call it, which is any of those missiles that get shot from Gaza, they intersect them in midair for the most part.
You know, before we get to the final song of the set, and I don't know, do you you may be playing this song, I don't know, it doesn't matter, it's your choice, but we've been playing the single from the album a lot, and I feel like every interview that you've done, you've probably been asked about the paperclip, so I feel like I really need to keep that string going. Such an unusual metaphor to begin, if that's the right word, to begin a song with, but people seem to really attach to that paperclip.
As did I. You know, the simple story behind the paperclip is I was in a relationship and we were breaking up over the kitchen counter, you know, and she had unfolded a paperclip and left it there sitting on the counter kind of in a teepee shape. And this is the cool thing about songs. You never know where they come from. You can kind of like hack away at words and placement and phrasing and melody and spend a whole year on making a song, writing a song, or, you know, you can stare at a paperclip for a second and be like, the way my brain works at least is, I'm just going to pick up a guitar for a second and see what comes out. Then the melody and the line and the first two lines come out, and then the song, sometimes they actually just, and I know they always say they write themselves. This one did not write itself, but it was very easy, you know. It just, I wrote the first few lines, then I had a chorus, and then I wrote the next line, and then I you know, mixed and pieced it together over the next few hours, and that's it.
The thing that you've pointed out in other interviews is that paperclip sort of sat there despite all the action that was going on around it, and at one point you decided that the paperclip might have had more resilience than the relationship that it had come to represent for you.
Oh yeah, definitely. This little aluminum thin straight that once was a straight line and was bent into a bunch of little squiggly lines and then unbent again, and now sits and has had atomic bombs of groceries thrown in its direction, or notepads, or books, or frying pans, or sriracha sauce, a pizza box. It didn't move, and nothing hit it. It was protected.
So I'm just thinking that if you just do a letter of authenticity, you could sell paper clips at the merch table and really clean up, Talk about profit margin.
Necklace.
We love cleaning up.
We'd love to hear another song if we could.
Okay, this is Yellow Eyes, the story of the paperclip.
Resting on my countertop. Sunday morning I forgot what it's like to lose a friend. But yesterday, how it seemed so far away, and I've said all I can say. And now it's time I get to going, and now it's time I get to find it my own way, and I'll leave you lonely. I'll leave you lonely. So now I'm on the road, knowing not which way to go. Is it yes or is it no? Well, I don't really care, for the golden sun washed me away, and I've become just another vagabond holding my head. And now it's time I give going, and now it's time I get to finding my own way, and I'll leave you lonely. I'll leave you lonely. All in all, it's a beautiful day, and I wake up all alone. I cannot help but run away. Now I'm afraid that it's all in my head. Don't you know that it's all in your head? So you roll the dice, melt the fire, burn the ice, find the girl with yellow eyes, and go and break her heart, and see that nothing changes, and I know not what I've become, a prisoner to everyone I've loved from the start. And now it's time I get to go, and now it's time I get to find my own way, and I'll leave you alone. I'll leave you lonely. I'll leave you lonely. I'll leave you lonely. I'll leave you lonely. I'll leave you lonely.
Wow, we almost did a little segue right into a whole nother song.
Yeehaw!
I'm ready for anything. With
Well, they
you
said in
guys.
the beginning of the program that I was what did he say? Alternative,
Oh, yeah.
an American alternative country songwriter. I can halfway agree with that.
What's the other half?
Singer-songwriter.
Yeah.
What does Graham Parsons call it? Cosmic American music.
Ooh.
Something more along the lines of cosmic American music. But today, I will be Rayland Baxter, the somewhat alternative country singer-songwriter.
Quite alternative.
Well, you know, it's like you got 2 albums under your belt, and they've each sounded different. And I
Yeah,
imagine the third one. So, you know, just like Bob Dylan says, keep reinventing yourself. You
Totally.
can be somebody completely different the next time you come in. We look forward to that.
Yeah, me too. I'm like, where is it going to go from here, man?
Straight to the top.
Top of the charts.
I think the Beatles phrase was the toppermost of the poppermost. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Toppermost of the propermost?
poppermost.
Poppermost.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like top of the pops. It's
Yeah,
like,
Yeah. So anyway, Rayland Baxter and band
Thanks for
opening
having me.
tonight for Grace Potter over at the Uptown. The new record is Imaginary Man. It's on ATO, and it's just a really great piece of work. I'm sure you're very, very proud.
I'm proud, but I keep my head down and keep trudging forward. Jimmy Matt over here on the keyboards played all the keys on the album, by the way. And then these guys are new to the group, but yeah, all the keyboard you hear is that keyboard man over there with a beard.
I'll tell you, it's a beautiful record, and it was great here today, and we can't thank you enough.
Thank you for having us all.
Rayland Baxter here on the bridge.
Bye-bye, Kansas City. Go Royals.
yeah, maybe they're going to win.